And welcome. We'll see, but welcome to Doug, new member, correct, from the Economic Advisory Committee.
Doug has graciously.
Did you all lose me? Did I freeze, or is it you all?
You're
The
frozen.
picture froze, but you're speaking.
Okay, could y'all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. So we'll go ahead and get started. Shannon, do you want to pull up the agenda?
Sure. Hang on one second. All right, here we go. Can everybody see this?
Got it. Yep. I see it.
Okay. So our first update was just to welcome Doug. He's joining us from the Economic Development Work Group so that they have some representation on the steering committee and the accountability committee going forward. So we thank him for agreeing to join us for yet another meeting. We will be adding another member from the university group later in August as well, so that they have some representation on this group moving forward. Anybody have any questions about that?
I'm on the university group.
So maybe it'll be you, Jackie. Maybe that would make it easy. They've only met once so far, so we haven't tackled the idea of having somebody also on the steering committee.
Well, they are welcome.
Isn't
Anybody-
Larry on that group? Is
Larry is
not
on that group too.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm on the university committee. As Shannon says, we've only had one meeting. I think our second meeting is also July 20th, isn't it?
It's August 2nd.
August 2nd, like I said, August 2nd.
So we'll be talking about that at their August meeting, and they'll be selecting somebody to join, or somebody to represent them who's already here, or Jackie and Larry will fill that role. So we'll be talking about that on August 2nd with them. Updates from the housing and traffic work groups. They are moving forward with some project ideas that are related to the recommendations that they've sent to Planning Commission and City Council. I can pull those up for you so you guys can take a look. They're both moving forward in very different ways, however. So let me pull up the potential traffic projects that this group is looking at. Are identifying language needed to update land use regulations, to figure out if there's a way to provide funding, to require developers to provide funding for the first 2 or 3 years for a cat bus route, or to require them to install sidewalks, bikeways, trails adjacent to their properties, and to look at requiring different types of traffic impact studies. So that's one thing they're looking at. They're looking at creating a process to basically get our walking and biking connections shovel ready. So figuring out how to maintain a list of shovel ready projects, or how to get those projects shovel ready. They're working on a wayfinding signage project. And the other one we discussed was looking at creating a city university co-sponsored event focused on alternative traffic and transportation. So a lot of other city university towns, Blacksburg does this. There's a couple others that do this, have a whole week-long event with events sponsored by the city and the university, encouraging everyone to walk and bike and use the bus system. And that ties in with the comp plan a little bit too, some of the recommendations that were already existing in the comp plan. So they are looking at those projects. That group, however, most of the community members on that team have chosen not to move forward with these projects. They want to be kept in the loop and they want updates on what's going on, but they'd really like Fran and Brad to oversee these projects. So we're going to be working on how that's going to move forward, probably mostly with city staff. you guys have any questions about that? All right. The housing group has 3 projects they're looking at. One is to research and identify a process to create affordable housing in a pocket neighborhood. We heard from Andy a couple of weeks ago that the city does own some pieces of property that might be appropriate for putting in a pocket neighborhood of affordable housing or workforce housing. Explore the creation of a council of neighborhoods, and continuing to explore the concept of a neighborhood plan and using the existing Cadillac Heights plan as an example to implement. So the housing group, the community members on this group do want to continue to move forward, and they are, some of those folks on that group are taking leadership roles on these projects. So this is going to be more community member driven with some help from staff on these. Any questions? All right. Oh. Hang on one second. All right. Here we go. So the other group recommendations are going to Planning Commission this week. So the Business and Economic Development Group, the University Group, and the Land Use Group, all their recommendations are going to Planning Commission on Thursday and then to City Council on Monday for discussion. Any questions? Okay. Next item, discuss the potential of working with JCUAB going forward. This idea of there's already existing on JCUAB similar committees that exist in ClemsonNext. Some of the priorities of those committees are very similar. I'd just like to get your input on how you think that could work, if you, how you see that potentially moving forward.
Well, I'll jump in. I sit on three committees now that surround economic development, and the JCUAB, and then Andy has a committee that is formed for the city with the city focus, and now we have the ClemsonNext group that I just joined about a month ago. And I think there would be some great synergy that would be achieved if we just all lumped it into the same group. Andy, do you recall, I know there was going to be some discussion after the last JCUAB meeting as to whether Johnson and others felt that would be an appropriate step?
Yes, they felt like that would be good because they kept finding themselves going to multiple meetings talking about pretty much the same thing, but they didn't want, they also identified the potential for different groups who aren't communicating with each other to be working on similar projects and maybe not being as efficient. So they were very receptive to it. Now the city one is a commission of council that's in the code. We'll have to keep that one going.
Yeah, and I will tell you that one is more action oriented. So, you know, for example, we have discussions in that group with you, and we take action. We do various activities, or we make changes, or we bring forward activity that's real time. Whereas the ClemsonNext is a little bit more long range, and the JCUAB really, I don't think we've accomplished much of anything yet. So I agree with the comment about keeping the city one. You know, for what it's worth, that one is more real time and more action oriented.
Rand's got his hand up.
So I think it depends for me what this would mean. So I've been on JCUAB several years. It moves at a glacial pace, and its focus is different than a lot of the things. So for instance, the recommendations that you read us earlier from housing and from traffic and transit, very few of those have a direct university link. Obviously, all of those have at least an indirect university link, but very few have a direct university link. Some of the transportation stuff does. None of the housing stuff really does that you listed. So my concern would be that if you mean as a permanent sort of group that is the only one, I think that's going to be a problem, because that JCUAB is really not designed to address those kind of issues directly. So Shannon, I think it depends how you want to see it and what you see it doing, because it's not, well, I like sort of Doug's word, it's not particularly action oriented, that's for sure. It might be reaction oriented, which is also important. But I think the other point is a lot of what we're doing and recommending is only tertiary in terms of the university's link. They still have to be partners and involved, but I don't know that we want to be weighted down by groups that have different agendas. And I'd say the same to JCUAB in terms of joining this group. I think that comment goes both ways.
So maybe an idea is we keep separate committees, maybe for the Business and Economic Development Committee, we don't have a Clemson Next committee. These goals or projects transition to the city committee, since that's likely a lot of the same folks. And then we figure out a process where it's integrated more with JCUAB for some of these groups.
Shannon, I think that's a pretty good idea, because the city's Economic Development Advisory Board would be a way to take some of the ideas and thoughts coming out of those other groups and package them in a plan and present them to council.
Okay.
Right. Agree.
Yeah, and I think we just make sure, if we're going to go that direction, that we just make sure that like the Economic Development Advisory Committee makes the Clemson Next recommendations a priority, and that they expand their capacity through some additional people as necessary as well.
Okay.
And then we can look for other opportunities, where, again, JCUAB, I think the point is we need to move, and JCUAB is a night, might be a way that we talk to, inform, about what's going on, but JCUAB is not going to be the one that's gonna make move down the road at this point. So I think we've got to be careful there.
Okay.
I do think there's value in the JCUAB from the purpose of communication. So, the linkages that Johnson and many of the other members of that committee, they wouldn't hear a lot of what's going on if it weren't for that meeting.
Yeah.
So, maybe that's a relationship building and communication purpose. Clemson Next is about strategically where we're going forward, and the Economic Advisory Council is where we generate actions to complete and move forward some of the initiatives. So you look at it with three different purposes as opposed to three different groups doing the same activity.
Good.
I like that.
Good.
Fran, did you have something you wanted to add? Okay.
I lowered his hand. I think he left his hand up.
No. Oh, I didn't leave my hand up. I muted myself though. So I don't do these kind of things very often, the Zoom business. So sort of back to what I was saying on the transportation committee of JCUAB, it really is a lot of stuff very directly related to campus and students. Now, it might be worth having someone like Dan Hoffman join our group, who is at sort of a higher level in terms of decision-making and access to decision makers, as opposed to a full integration. Because I think the JCUAB, what do we meet, quarterly or semi-annual? I don't even know when we meet, how frequently, has pretty specific business when it meets related to JCUAB issues. But if Dan, for instance, wanted to be part of this group. Because of his position, I think it would make sense, but I don't know that the whole total integration would benefit either group.
Yeah, I
Okay.
agree with that. And I think that's a good approach, is to grab the right people when we need them onto the committees that we have for Clemson Next. Todd put in the chat that next week, the Housing Committee is having a joint session with the JCUAB Housing Committee. So that works from a communication standpoint and that kind of deal.
Okay, any other comments or ideas? All right, Andy, Bob, you want to give everybody an update on the Uptown redevelopment workshop?
Well,
Andy?
council's meeting today at noon to look at the proposals that were submitted and figure out who they want to bring in for the in-person interviews and get their calendars together to get those things scheduled.
Okay.
Okay,
So hopefully there'll be some type of news on that this afternoon. So I think we got 4 proposals.
Yeah, we got 4 proposals.
okay,
I'm inclined to say just invite them all in if you only have 4.
Yeah.
Normally, that's the number we end up interviewing anyway.
So,
But honestly, I've only given them a cursory glance. I don't know if there's any
Yeah.
obvious.
we need to have a discussion about how much they responded to the requirements and the things that we put in the RFP. as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. Make sure they're all responsive, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Before we go down that road of who we're bringing in and that kind of deal. So. All right. So hopefully we'll know a little more this afternoon about where we are in that process.
sounds good. The last thing I have for you guys this morning is just a reminder that next Tuesday is our Clemson Next informational meeting. There's 3 separate meetings, 3 separate times, all one day. So if you can make it to it's actually at Abernathy Park from 9 to 11 a.m., to the community room at the fire station on Issaquena Trail from 12 to 2, or to Little John Community Center from 5 to 7. It'd be great to see you there and have some folks involved with Clemson Next there to answer questions and interact with the public that comes out. We also I sent this invitation out to all the community members on the work groups as well. So some of those work group members will be attending those meetings too.
Fran has his hand up.
Yeah, so Shannon, how are we getting the word out on this? My concern is attendance and participation, and this is pretty crucial that people come and listen. My guess is this week's hearings on Nettles Park are not being overwhelmed with numbers of people. I think we need to make a very concentrated, active attempt to get people to know about these meetings and come. In addition to listing it on the city's webpage, and on the My Civic, but I don't know how, but I think it's crucial that lots of people get information about this and that it's multiple times as opposed to just one, and it's active as opposed to passive. In other words, passive would mean they'd have to come to us and click on it in the city's webpage. Active would be, frankly, we're kind of in their face about this. So I don't know how we do it, but I think we need to get lots of messages on lots of different media. So at least we can feel confident people knew about the meetings and then chose to come or not come, as opposed to 2 weeks from now at a council meeting when we're voting, someone says, I never had a chance to comment on this. And that's a hard thing to get that word out, but I think we have to make a really major push to do that any way we can.
Okay.
Shannon, just real quick. So with these being 9 to 11, obviously it's not going to be a 2-hour meeting with someone talking. So do we plan to at 9, 9:30, 10, 10:30, have a little 5-minute, talk about what's going on and then let people see some things, provide input, or are we just asking them to come and provide input on where we are with recommendations?
So I'm bringing all the recommendations, they'll be displayed. And it really is a drop-in. As they come, we will engage with each group that shows up as they show up. I don't know, I'm having a hard time. It's summer.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get people there for a, specific time. I think if we get people, it'll be the kind of the drop-in effect, and we'll just engage with them one-on-one. So I do have, blown up everything that I'm bringing to those events. And this is the first one. I think the other thing that we're going to do at the start of this one is, now that we have some projects going forward, to publicize those and see if we can recruit some new members of the community that might be willing to come in and work. And I do think this is the test case for this public meeting, and we'll probably do it again monthly, or maybe combine it with the conversations with council moving forward. But just figuring out how to do this. I think a lot of city groups, Fran mentioned the Nettles master plan. I think everybody's kind of trying to figure out how to get input when maybe we haven't been getting input online, but how to get everybody back out in the public space and coming together to do this. And I think there's going to be some a warming up period, honestly. Andy?
And we can just play that a little by ear too. Like, if we get a big group at 9 o'clock, we can give a little spiel as we get started, and then just let people ask questions, explain what's going on, that kind of thing. All right.
Yep.
Shannon, this is Larry. Did you say you're going to have the one-page summaries for
Yes.
for
Yes.
the people in attendance?
Yes.
For each of the committees, right? For each of the
For each
committees.
of the
the
committees.
action. Okay.
Yeah. So we'll have their recommendations, and the committees that have projects that they're working on will have the project lists there as well.
Good. Okay, thank you.
And Andy has his hand up.
I think you're muted, Andy.
Yeah, I just saw that. I was just gonna say, I'll spend a little bit of money, not anything worth mentioning hardly, but I can call the newspaper and see if they can help us advertise this thing, maybe do a story on it, that sort of thing.
Okay.
In addition to our normal outlets. And I think if we can get the people on the committee who are on Nextdoor and these other social media places to put that on there, it might help as well. Other than just the city's part. If we have more tendrils out there, we might be more effective.
Okay.
So could we come up with something that maybe we could post at different places, if businesses would post them, if we could post them at parks, any other location, just an announcement that would go to places where people might see it?
I have flyers. So yes, I will do that.
Doctors' offices, dentist offices, the free clinic, Clemson community, just pretty much anywhere that people would go, a diverse group of people would go and be able to see it.
That sounds very old school and everything, but I've been asking people at the Nettles Park meetings how they found out about it. And I keep hearing, well, I saw a flyer at the library. It's none of the sophisticated stuff we're doing. It's all comes back to just the old fashioned flyer posted on a door somewhere.
Well, I think it should be all those ways, right?
Yeah.
And thank you, Andy. Old school is near and dear to my heart, of course.
We're going to send a telegraph. Elaine?
I'm sorry, I had to take a call about a sick friend of mine, but anyhow, I was just going to suggest that maybe we go through the churches as well. I don't know if they have bulletin boards, we can post something there or just get them to make announcements. We still have this coming weekend before these meetings set up.
Yeah.
Just a thought.
Okay.
All right. Anything else? We're almost at 8:30, so the land use people will be hopping on. Anything else before we change gears to the land use committee?
Just one comment, Bob. So at council meeting on Monday, Sammy Grant, who's the CAT bus coordinator, expressed his sort of feeling about not being included in the transportation and traffic committee's work. And it was a good comment. So just for all of us, and Shannon particularly, so we do need to start working on, and Shannon's already doing this, making sure the city staff who are most involved in this, I think it's time for sort of the second level, which would be we involve them after, after we have recommendations. But Sammy's point was well taken, and I apologize to him for doing that. But I think city staff have to be the ones that are going to be implementers. So formally or informally, and I know I said Shannon's already doing that, but I don't know if formally we need to do something through this group or some other way, or just Andy and Shannon handle that.
What would you guys like to do? Do you want to do it formally? Do you want to do it informally? I'm already working for the traffic group with Heather Lawless and Sammy Grant and getting them involved and up to speed. The housing group will probably go through Todd, kind of working with the JCUAB on that. Do you guys want to have a formal kind of meeting after council ratifies these recommendations where a lot of this stuff transitions to staff with the comp plan?
I'm comfortable with informal to move forward at this point.
Anybody else?
I like the informal too, because it leaves some flexibility in it, because the staff person we invite is going to largely be dependent on the recommendation we're working on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So,
Okay.
question, are we in the first meeting or the full?
We're still in the first meeting.
Okay.
So, but welcome. Yep.
Shannon, before we close the first meeting, you said you had a flyer. Can you send a PDF of that? Because I've got a couple of places I can post that.
I would love to. I will do that, Doug.
Thank you.
All right.
All right,
Well,
hang on
with
one second, guys. We're gonna pause this and close out the implementation committee.